Hello all of you. Today we are going to start with the subnetting, and the subnetting is nothing but the dividing the IP addresses in a octet form, or we can say not in octet form actually, into the 7, 6, 3, 2, 5 or any form. Okay, suppose now we are taking the example, you are converting the class A, class B, class C. Suppose here I am shown here the class A, class B, class C. These are the standard subnet mask. Okay, suppose if you see in any in the IP address in the computer, so there is first IP address, then there is subnet mask. Subnet mask is nothing but which class it belongs. Suppose you are using the class A, then subnet mask is 255, on all the remaining is 000. Means what? The class A 255 is the network ID, and the remaining 000 is nothing but the what? Host ID. So means what? When you are using the subnet mask for the class A, so first you put this 255.0.0.0. Similarly for the class B, 255.255.0.0 means what? So network ID you can access it as a 255 and the remaining host ID you can put as a 00. Similarly for the class C. So I hope you understand what exactly the subnet mask is. In the subnet mask is nothing but what? The indicate how much of the IP address represent the network. Okay, so it represents how much IP addresses can be used in that networks. Okay, or from the subnet mask you can identify which class is this IP address. I hope you understand. From the subnet mask you can understand which class is this IP address or this network ID we are using. Okay, so in the network ID the TCP IP remote, the binary and operation is used to perform the calculation. So subnet is nothing but what? The manipulation of the subnet mask to get more network number. Manipulation of the subnet mask to get more network number. So the subnet address, so network is identified by the first or a first few octets. Okay, that I will explain you. So the network is identified using the first or first few octet, and the TCP IP host must have a non-zero host identifier. Okay. Now there is one broadcast address. The broadcast address is nothing but what? The highest IP address. Okay, or when the entire host portion of an IP address is all binary ones. Means what? So in that network which is the highest IP address, or we can say the last IP address, that is nothing but the broadcast address. So example, suppose you are using the 190.55.255.255, that is nothing but what? The highest IP address, or that we can call it as a broadcast address. Okay, so now you can see here I have given one example how exactly the network addressing is. So the subnet mask, suppose the subnet ID means what is the subnet ID? That is nothing but 199.192.65.0. 65.0 means what? You are using this subnet ID. So that is nothing but what? From the subnet mask you can identify the 255.255.255.0 means these first 3 bits are nothing but the network ID. Okay, and the last 0 represent the host ID. Okay, from this network subnet mask you can identify, because this is nothing but the class C IP address. Okay, but the broadcast address, that is nothing but the higher or last IP address of that network. Okay, so now we can give some example here. So now you can see here 224 in the subnet mask. Okay, in the subnet mask here is a 224. So now there will be in your mind there will be question, how is it 225 224? In the previous, in the class A, class B, class C, there is a 255.255.00 or sometime, so in all in a 0 to 255, how exactly there here is a 224? So that is nothing but the subnetting. Okay, that is nothing but the subnetting. Means what? Why we are going for this subnetting? Suppose my office I am using only a 10 IP addresses. Okay, suppose I am using only 10 IP addresses, and from the classless or classful IP addressing, suppose class A, class B, class C, how I can use the minimum IP addresses? to my office, that is nothing but the class C, that is I can use maximum 255 or sorry minimum 255 network ID I have to use, so I can use the IP addresses. So how many there are wastage? Suppose I require only 10 and there is nothing but 255 IP addresses. Okay, so there is almost waste of the 245 IP addresses. So it is not feasible in the networking. Okay, suppose I require 10 IP addresses, so I can choose that IP address. I can choose that IP address or network ID. Okay, so that I can use only so I can fulfill my network ID or my IP address requirement. So there is a what is the exactly application or use of this subnetting? We can save the IP addresses, okay, from wasting it. Okay. Okay, so the broadcast are for many subnet. You use the IP addresses 255.255.255.255. A router does not propagate a flooded broadcast because they are considerable local. Okay, and the direct broadcast are for a specific subnet. So router can forward direct broadcast. For example, a packet sent to the class B address 129.30.255.255 would be a broadcast of a network to 129.30.0.0. So I hope you understand. Now subdividing the IP classes. Okay, subdividing the IP classes. So now you know the IP classes are there into the 8 octets, okay, or 16 or 24. Now we are going to divide again into the we are going to again subdivide that classes. So to match the physical layout of the organization, to match the administrative structure of the organization, to plan the future growth, to reduce the network traffic. So this is why we are going to using this subnetting. Okay, and the subnetting nothing but subdividing the classes. Very simple. Subdividing the IP classes. So how we can subdividing, that we are going to learn. Now you can see here. So address from the ARIN. So that is nothing but 190.45.00. What is the default mask? 255.255.00. So it is nothing but the class B IP address. Now what is the subnet mask? 255.255.255.0. Okay, means what? 55.255.255, that is nothing but the network ID. Okay, and only remaining 50 is nothing but your host. Okay, so there are how much host? 15 is nothing but the host. So in that IP address now 190.45.3, this is nothing but the network ID, and only 255 IP addresses we can use. Okay, but practically class B is giving the only last two octets are the IP address, host IDs. Okay, but using the subnetting, you can use the class B IP address into the class C. Okay, we cannot say in the class C, but in the minimum host IDs. Okay, so all the time there are so many host IDs are IP addresses are waste if you are using the class B network. Okay, so there is a 255 into 250, 2 raised to 16 IP addresses, and you are supposed to require only 10, and there are 265 IP 2 raised to 16 IP addresses can be waste. So for that purpose we are using this. Okay, so next time if you want to move the network, if you want to change the network, what we can do? 190.45.3. okay, and then I will get again the 255 sorry 4, and then I will get again the next network ID. Okay, so that is nothing but what? The subdividing the IP classes. This is how you can going to subdivide it. Okay, so subnet masking, when network administrator creates the subnet, they borrow bits from the original host field to make a set of subnetworks. The number of borrowed bits determine how many subnetworks and hosts will be available, and the class C addresses also can be subdivided. Okay, now C is also again divided into the sub IP addresses. Okay, so not as many options are available. Mask exists because only the last octet can be manipulated with these classes. Okay, so now you can see here, this is a very important chart, the subnet mask, subnets on the network, host per subnet. Okay, so 255.255.120.0 128.0 means what? The last 255 is divided into two parts. There is nothing but what? Two subnets. Okay, so there are almost 32,766 IP addresses. Again, the subnet that divided into 4, so that is nothing but 16, then 8, 16, 32, 64. You can see how the IP addresses or how this subnet mask can be increasing. Okay, so here we can come here. So 255.255.255.0, that is nothing but exactly look like the class C IP address. Okay, so that class C IP address is also again divided into sub parts. Okay, so if you are using the 255.255.255.128, okay, 128 means what? There is a starting IP address is 255 192, suppose 62.3.1. okay, and start from 3 to 127. okay, because here is a subnet mask is 128. okay, so how much IP subnet masks are there? 512, and it is giving the IP addresses only 126 from 1 to 127, that is become 126 IP addresses. okay, the first is the, and that 127 is also the broadcast IP. Subnets also, subnet on the networks means your network side is going on increasing and your host IP goes on decreasing. Okay, so I hope you understand, when networks on the networks IDs are increasing or network IP addresses increasing, your host ID goes on decreasing. Okay, so this is very important chart. So in the next previous, this is continuous subnet mask. So where is the lowest? Suppose if I want to use only 2 IP addresses in my computer or in my office, then which which subnetting I will use? I will use this subnetting. Okay, this is nothing but last one. Suppose I want to use only 6 IP addresses, I can use this subnet mask. Suppose I want to use only 30 IP addresses, so I can use only this subnet mask. Okay, so this is how we can reduce the wastage of IP addresses into the using the subnetting. Okay, so this is nothing but the subnet masking. Then how the subnet masking can be done? Okay, how this subnet masking can be done and how it can be utilized. So now you can see here, so 128.64, this is nothing but the binary, this is nothing but the binary bits. Okay, so these we are simply writing, suppose you want to convert any decimal number into binary, so then we will write 1, 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 3, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. okay, like this. Suppose these are nothing but the binary digit. Okay, so first decimal equivalence, suppose this is 1, this become 128, so this will become 1 subnet mask. Going to make a third, then 224, then 240, 248, 253, 252, 254 and 255. Likewise, we are going to increasing the 1, so the subnet mask will become. Okay, so you can convert that into the subnet masking. Okay, so this is how the subnet mask can be created. Okay, now learning to the subnet. Suppose you had a network with 5 different segments. Somewhere between the 15 and 20 TCP IP host on each network segment. So you just received your class C address from ARIN. Okay, that is nothing but 199.1.10.0. So only one subnet mask can be handle your network configuration. That is nothing but the only one subnet mask can be handle your network configuration, that is nothing but 255.255.255. Okay, so 224. So this subnet mask will allow you to create 8 subnetworks and to place up to 30 hosts per network. Okay, so this is a very simple example. Suppose you have taken a subnet mask with 255.255.255.224. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? This meaning is nothing but what? You can use only 30 hosts per network. Okay, so there are nothing but the 8 networks. Okay, 8. What is the meaning of this? You can using the 30 IP addresses in a one network. Okay, then 30 hours, then you can use the another network. Okay, so that is nothing but 199.1.10.0. okay, suppose from there is 199.1.10.33. okay, from 33 to 64, there is another network. Okay, that is nothing but the another network. From again 65 to 92. Okay, that is another network. Okay, so likewise you can make almost 8 networks in the same IP addresses or same network. Okay, so determine the subnet identifier IP addresses. Write the last masking octet as a binary number. Okay, and determine the binary place of the last masking digit. How to calculate the subnet now? Begin with the major network number, that is subnet 0, and increment by 32. Stop counting when you reach the value of the mask. Okay, so determine the valid range for your host on each subnet. Take the range between each subnet identifier. Remove the broadcast address for each network. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? Begin with the major network number and increment by 32, and stop counting when you reach the value of the mask. Suppose there is a 30, right? So there is a 30 network IDs in the one host. So there are 8. So 8 into 3. So there is nothing but 224. So what is the mask value? Is nothing but, that is mask value, that is nothing but the 224. Okay, that mask value, this mask value is nothing but the 224. Okay, that is nothing but, sorry, 423. Okay, so that is starting with the, suppose you are going to on increasing 32 and 32, then it last value will become your mask value. Okay, so now class C address, suppose you are taking the class C address, that is nothing but 199.1.10.0. okay, so the standard mask is what? 255.255.255.0. that is the standard mask of the class C. Now suppose there are how many IP addresses here is you can use? There is, you can use the 255 IP addresses you have to, or you are getting to use. But now in your class you are required only 15 IP addresses, or you can say 30 IP addresses. Then what we are going to do? We are going to do this 224 subnetting. So you are using here subnet mask is 255, that is nothing but 255.255.255.224, means what? It will use from 199.1.10.0 to 199.1.10.231. okay, 31. So you are using only this IP address networking. So you will get the 30 IP addresses from 199.1.10.33. okay, so you will start with the next network ID. okay, so again you will get the 30 IP addresses up to 64. okay, suppose this is, and this is nothing but two different networks. You are not in the same network because you are using the mask is, understand what I am saying? Okay, now here are the subnet identifiers and the valid host range and the broadcast address for the subnet. Suppose you are using here 199.1.10.0. Okay, so in that, how many valid host IP that I am explaining you? These are nothing but the 1 to 30. That is nothing but the valid host IPs, and the broadcast IP is 31. Okay, now 199.1.10.32, that is nothing but the another network. Okay, that is nothing but another network. In that network you can getting another this IP addresses. Similarly for 64 you will get, so in every time you will get the 30 IP addresses to use, and these are nothing but the last or higher IP address is nothing but your broadcast IP address. Okay, so 199.1.10.96, 28, 60, 92, 24. These are nothing but the subnet mask or subnet identifier. Okay, so all time this subnet mask is what? 224. Okay, so I will give one assignment here. Suppose the IP address is, sorry, the subnet mask is 255.255.255.192. okay, 192. Then you can identify, or you can make this table: subnet identifier, valid host range, and broadcast address for the network. Okay, in the next lecture I hope you come with this assignment, how exactly it can be done, how the subnetting can be done using this. Okay, so I hope you understand the things. So in the next lecture we will see the variable length. Okay, variable length IP addressing.